The day my boyfriend changed overnight, I blamed myself, until I discovered my best friend was performing rituals to take him from me. At first, it didn't feel dramatic, there was no argument. No cheating text. No obvious betrayal, just a shift, the kind you feel before you can explain it. The night before, he had fallen asleep with his arm around me, his breathing slow and familiar. He kissed my forehead like he always did, murmuring that half-asleep goodnight that used to make me smile. Everything felt normal. Safe. Hours. The next morning, he woke up like a stranger. He didn't reach for me. Didn't smile. Didn't ask how I slept. He picked up his phone immediately, scrolling with a blank expression. As if I wasn't even there. Are you okay? I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah, he said. Too quick. Too flat. That was the first crack. Over the next few days, those cracks multiplied. He stopped calling me during his lunch breaks. Our inside jokes went unanswered. When I spoke, he listened like someone waiting for a bus, present, but already gone. I told myself what most people do. He's stressed, work is hard, I'm overthinking, and when he started canceling plans, I blamed myself harder. Maybe I was too emotional. Too available. Too demanding. I replayed every conversation in my head, looking for the moment I might have pushed him away without realizing it. The scariest part wasn't his distance. It was how sudden it was. People don't just fall out of love in one night. Not like that. Not without a fight, or a warning, or at least confusion on both sides, but he seemed certain, detached, as if something inside him had already made a decision, and the rest of him was just catching up. That's when my best friend stepped in. She always had a way of showing up at exactly the right time. Or at least, that's what I believed back then. She came over with snacks, sat beside me on the floor, and listened while I cried. She told me I deserved better. That men were unpredictable. That love changes, you're too pure, she said softly. You give too much. I remember holding on to those words like a life raft. She was the one who suggested giving him space. The one who reassured me when my anxiety spiraled. The one who said, if it's meant to be, it'll come back. What I didn't notice then was how often she checked her phone while comforting me, how her sympathy sometimes felt rehearsed, how her eyes lit up just a little when I mentioned his name. A week later, he stopped saying I love you. Not during calls. Not in texts. Not even out of habit. When I finally confronted him, my voice shaking despite my best effort to stay calm, he looked almost relieved. I don't know what's wrong with me, he said. I just feel disconnected. Disconnected, that word echoed in my head for days, disconnected from me, but not from her, because slowly, quietly, his name started appearing in her stories. A shared song. A familiar coffee shop. A blurry arm in the background that looked suspiciously like his. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off. You're imagining things, she said. You're hurting, that's all. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, so I ignored the unease curling in my stomach. I ignored the dreams that woke me up sweating, dreams where I was screaming and no one could hear me. I ignored the feeling that something unseen was moving around me, rearranging my life when I wasn't looking, until the night everything changed. I had gone to her place unannounced. I don't even know why, I just felt pulled there, like something inside me was screaming go now. She didn't hear me knock at first, the lights were dim. The curtains drawn, and then I smelled it. Smoke, not from cooking. Not from a candle meant to relax, something heavier. I stepped inside quietly, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure she'd hear it. That's when I saw it, a small circle on the floor. Black thread. Melted wax. A photograph folded in a way that made my stomach drop. It was his picture, pinned beneath something dark and sticky. My name was written beside it, but crossed out. For a moment, my brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. I stood there frozen, caught between disbelief and terror. This isn't real, I whispered, but it was. She turned around then, and the look on her face wasn't guilt, it was annoyance. You weren't supposed to see that, she said. That sentence broke something inside me. Not what is this? Not I can explain, not even your misunderstanding. Just, you weren't supposed to see that. That's when fear replaced confusion. That's when I realized my relationship hadn't fallen apart naturally. Something, or someone, had interfered, and the person I trusted most had been quietly rewriting my fate. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I just stared at her, waiting for the moment when she'd laugh and say it was a joke, some weird aesthetic thing, some misunderstood nonsense. But she didn't laugh, she sighed, like I was the inconvenience. You're overreacting, she said, stepping between me and the circle on the floor. It's not what you think. My mouth opened, but no words came out. My heart was racing so fast it felt like my body was trying to escape before my mind could catch up. Then tell me, I finally said. Tell me why his photo is there. Tell me why my name is crossed out. She looked at me for a long moment. Studying me. measuring how much truth I could handle. Then she said, I did what I had to do. That was the moment fear settled into my bones. She started talking, slowly, calmly, like she was explaining a recipe. She said she'd been feeling energies for months. That she knew he was meant for her the first time she met him. That I was just in the way. She said love wasn't enough. That sometimes you had to guide the universe. I felt sick. You messed with his free will, I whispered. She shrugged. If he didn't want me, it wouldn't have worked. That sentence haunted me later, because part of me wondered, what if she was right? I left her house shaking, my legs barely carrying me. I didn't tell anyone what I'd seen. Not my family. Not him. How do you explain something that sounds insane even as you're living it? That night, he called me. His voice sounded wrong. Soft. Empty. I keep thinking about her, he said suddenly. I don't know why. My chest tightened. Thinking how? She understands me, he said. She feels familiar. Familiar, the same word she used when she talked about destiny. I asked him if he was seeing her. There was a pause. Then, quietly, she's been helping me through stuff. I hung up after that. I didn't trust myself to speak. That's when the symptoms started, not just emotional ones, physical. I stopped sleeping. When I did, my dreams were heavy and disturbing. I'd wake up with scratches on my arms I couldn't explain. My chest felt tight all the time, like something was sitting on it. I started forgetting things. Important things. Conversations. Dates. And every time I tried to focus on him, on us, my mind would fog over. Meanwhile, he drifted further away. He stopped responding to my messages. When he did, they felt mechanical. Like someone else was choosing his words. Then came the post, a picture of them together, no caption. No explanation, just her head on his shoulder, his eyes half closed, like he was exhausted. People started asking me questions. Did you break up? Isn't that your best friend? Are you okay? I wasn't. I confronted her again. This time in public. She smiled when she saw me. Actually smiled. You look tired, she said. I told her to stop. Whatever she was doing, rituals, spells, intentions, I told her to undo it. She leaned closer and whispered, you can't undo what's already been accepted. Accepted by who? The universe, him, or something darker? That night, I finally told him everything. I told him about the circle. The photo. The crossed out name. He laughed, not cruelly. Uncomfortably. You're spiraling, he said. She's worried about you. That's when I realized she had already rewritten the story. In his version, I was unstable, I was jealous, I was imagining things, and she was the calm, supportive friend helping him through my breakdown. I started doubting myself. Maybe stress had made me paranoid. Maybe heartbreak was warping my perception. Maybe I really was losing it. But then something happened that shattered that doubt. I found messages on his phone, messages he swore he didn't remember sending, messages where he said things he'd never say. Things that didn't sound like him. I feel pulled toward you. I can't stop thinking about you. It feels like something is pushing me. Pushing. When I showed him, his face went pale. I don't remember writing this, he said, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes, real fear. That's when I knew this wasn't just betrayal, something had attached itself to our lives. Something fed on secrecy, obsession, and silence, and it wasn't done yet, because the more I tried to break free, the worse things became. And soon, I would realize that losing him was only the beginning. After that night, nothing felt solid anymore. Reality itself felt thin, like it could tear if I pressed too hard. I started paying attention to patterns. The kind you ignore at first because they sound ridiculous, until they keep repeating. Every time I tried to distance myself from her, something went wrong. Every time I thought about cutting her out completely, my anxiety spiked so sharply I felt sick. And every time I tried to talk sense into him, he'd pull away and run straight back to her. It was like I wasn't fighting two people. I was fighting something invisible that was tightening its grip the moment I resisted. Friends stopped answering my calls. Not all at once, but slowly. One by one. Plans got cancelled. Messages went unread. I heard through mutuals that I'd become too intense, too emotional, not myself anymore. Her words were spreading through other people's mouths. I felt erased while still alive. Even my family noticed the change. You're not eating, my mother said one night, watching me push food around my plate. You look scared all the time, my sister whispered. I wanted to tell them everything. The rituals. The manipulation. The way my boyfriend's personality had fractured. But how do you say that out loud without sounding unhinged? So I stayed quiet, and silence is dangerous when you're already alone. The worst part was how calm she looked through all of it. Every time I saw her, online or in person, she glowed. Clear skin. Soft smiles. Peaceful energy. Like she'd traded my chaos for her serenity. She posted about self-love. About manifesting. About letting go of toxic people. And everyone applauded. Meanwhile, I started unraveling. I had panic attacks in grocery store aisles. I flinched at sudden noises. My hand shook when my phone buzzed because I never knew what message would push me over the edge. Then came the dreams. They weren't normal nightmares. They felt deliberate. I'd see him standing far away, calling my name, while something unseen held him back. I'd wake up with my heart pounding and the sense that I'd been watched. One night, I woke up at exactly 3:17 a.m., wide awake. My phone lit up at the same moment. A message from her. "I dreamed about you," it said. "You should stop fighting what's meant to be." That was the moment I stopped doubting myself. Because coincidences don't text you at 3:17 in the morning, I blocked her, everywhere. For the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd closed a door that had been letting something poisonous into my life. But the relief didn't last. Within hours, my boyfriend showed up at my place, unannounced. Unsteady. His eyes looked dark, like he hadn't slept in days. "You blocked her," he said. "Not hello, not are you okay, just that. How do you know?" I asked. He didn't answer. He started pacing my living room, rubbing his temples like his head was splitting open. "She says you're trying to control me," he snapped. "She says you're manipulating things." The irony almost broke me. I told him everything again, slowly, carefully, like I was defusing a bomb. I told him how I felt isolated. How scared I was. How wrong everything felt. For a moment, he softened, then his phone buzzed. He checked it, and just like that, the wall went back up. "I need space," he said coldly. "I can't do this right now." And he left. That was the night I realized she didn't just have access to him, she had access to his mind. That's when I started researching, not obsessively. Not wildly, quietly, late at night. In incognito tabs. Stories buried deep in forums. Accounts from people who'd gone through eerily similar situations, sudden personality changes, obsessive attachments, a third person who always seemed to benefit, patterns again, and the pattern was clear: isolation was the first step. Make the victim doubt themselves, turn others against them, rewrite the narrative before the truth can surface. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I stopped trying to convince him. Stopped defending myself to people who'd already chosen a side. Instead, I focused on grounding myself. I cleaned my space. Opened windows. Removed gifts she'd given me. Deleted old photos that carried too much emotional weight, and slowly, very slowly, I felt a tiny bit stronger, but strength threatened whatever had attached itself to my life. Because the pushback was immediate, I started getting anonymous messages, strange calls with no one on the line, dreams where I felt trapped, unable to scream, and then she sent one last message, from a new account. "You can't walk away from this," it read. "You started something you don't understand." My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear for the first time in months. I typed back 3 words: "Watch me try." That was the moment I stopped being a victim, and became a problem. The moment I decided to fight back, everything escalated, not loudly, not dramatically, but aggressively quiet, like something realizing it was losing control. I didn't post about it. Didn't announce boundaries. Didn't warn anyone. I learned quickly that silence was safer than confrontation. Instead, I changed my routines. I stopped going to places where I might accidentally run into them. I muted mutual friends who fed me updates disguised as concern. I protected my sleep like it was sacred, because exhaustion had been my weakest point, and for the first time in months, I chose myself without asking permission. That's when the backlash came. My boyfriend, ex, though the word still felt sharp, started reaching out again. Late-night messages. Missed calls. Voice notes that sounded confused, desperate, almost childlike. "I don't feel like myself," one message said. "I keep thinking about you." Then her, then nothing at all. I didn't respond, not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something crucial. You cannot rescue someone who is still choosing the fire. She, on the other hand, didn't hide her anger anymore. Her post changed tone. Less peace. More venom disguised as empowerment. Some people play the victim when they lose control. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. I recognized myself in every sentence, and I let it happen, because reacting was what she wanted. What she didn't expect was for me to start rebuilding outside her reach. I reached out to one person I trusted completely. Someone who knew me before the relationship, before the chaos, before the doubt, and when I finally said everything out loud, without filtering, without minimizing, it felt like stepping into fresh air after months underwater. "You're not crazy," they said immediately. "Whatever this is, it's real to you. And that's enough." Those words grounded me more than any explanation ever could. Something else happened too, something subtle but powerful. The nightmares started to fade, not all at once, but slowly. Like whatever had been feeding on my fear was starving. I stopped checking her pages. Stopped wondering what he was doing. Stopped replaying conversations that no longer mattered. I reclaimed small things first. Music I hadn't listened to since before him, clothes she used to compliment, then subtly criticize, my laugh, which I realized I'd been holding back for months. Strength returned quietly, but not without a final test. One evening, as I was locking my door, my phone buzzed. A message from him: "I need to see you. Please. Just once." Every instinct screamed no, but another part of me, the part that needed closure, truth, and confirmation, said this is the moment. We met in a public place. Neutral ground. No shadows. He looked worse than I remembered. Thinner. Tired. Hollowed out. For a while, we just sat there. Then he spoke. "She scares me," he said. Those 3 words erased months of doubt. He told me everything then. How he'd felt compelled to be around her. How being away from her made him anxious. How disagreeing with her felt physically painful, like pressure in his chest. "I don't know why I listened to her over you," he said, voice breaking. "I don't feel in control." I didn't tell him I told you so. I didn't need to, because clarity had finally reached him, and that clarity came with consequences. I told him I couldn't be part of his healing. That I hoped he found peace, but not at the cost of my own, and when I walked away, something strange happened. The heaviness lifted, not instantly, but noticeably. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept without dreams. The next morning, I woke up calm, no racing heart. No dread. No invisible pressure. Later, I found out she had blocked me, not the other way around, blocked, as if cutting the cord had burned her fingers. Friends slowly began reaching out again. Apologies followed, awkward, half-formed, but sincere. "I didn't realize how much you were hurting," she said. "Things. I should have checked on you." I accepted what felt genuine. Let the rest go. Healing doesn't require everyone to understand your pain, it only requires you to stop bleeding for people who caused it. The truth is, I may never know exactly what she did, or how much power belief, manipulation, and obsession played in it all. But I know this: whatever had control over my life lost its grip the moment I chose myself without guilt, and not everyone survives that choice, because power, real or imagined, doesn't like being challenged. People think the end of a story looks like relief, like closure arrives neatly wrapped, with answers and justice and a clear villain walking away defeated. That's not how it happened. What came after was quieter than the chaos, but heavier in a different way. Life didn't magically snap back into place. I didn't wake up one day healed. Some mornings, I still reached for my phone expecting a message that would ruin my mood. Some nights, my body braced for fear even when nothing was chasing me anymore. Trauma doesn't disappear just because the danger leaves, it lingers in your nervous system. In your habits. In the way you second-guess your own thoughts. For a long time, I questioned myself. Was it really manipulation? Was it obsession? Or was it all coincidence, amplified by heartbreak and fear? I learned something important during that phase. You don't need a supernatural explanation for something to destroy you. Control can look mystical when you don't understand it. Manipulation can feel like magic when it rewires your reality. Isolation can mimic possession when you lose your sense of self. Whether what she did was ritualistic, psychological, or something in between almost stopped mattering, the damage was real. The consequences were real, and so was my recovery. I ran into him months later, by accident, in a place neither of us used to go. He looked different. Softer. More present. We spoke briefly. Carefully, he apologized without excuses. Told me he'd been in therapy. Said he finally understood how deeply influenced he'd been, how he'd confused intensity for connection and attention for truth. "I wasn't myself," he said quietly. "But I know that doesn't undo what I did." He was right. Understanding doesn't reverse time. I forgave him anyway, not because he deserved it, but because I was tired of carrying him with me. As for her, I never spoke to her again, but I heard things, whispers. Patterns repeating. New friendships burning bright, then imploding. New people playing the roles I once did. That's when the final realization settled in. Some people don't want love. They want control dressed up as destiny. They don't steal partners, they steal identities. They don't break relationships, they fracture perception. They don't need spells when they understand how to insert doubt, dependency, and fear. And once you've been close to someone like that, you don't walk away unchanged. You walk away sharpened, more observant, more protective of your peace. Less willing to ignore red flags just because someone feels familiar. There are still moments, rare but real, when a memory surfaces and my chest tightens. When I remember how small I felt. How unsure of my own mind. But those moments pass, because I rebuilt something stronger than what I lost. I rebuilt trust with myself. I learned to listen to discomfort instead of explaining it away. I learned that sudden personality shifts aren't romantic mysteries, they're warnings. And I learned that anyone who benefits from your confusion is not on your side. If there's one thing I want people listening to understand, it's this: not every threat announces itself loudly. Some sit beside you, hold your hand, and call themselves your friend. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight, it's to step away before you forget who you are. I didn't lose my boyfriend to her, I almost lost myself. And surviving that will always matter more than who walked away with whom.